Welcome to Savor the Southwest. I'm visiting a friend in Vermont, and so we're going to make my squash blossoms with daylilies instead of squash blossoms. So this could work either way. There's a lot of yummy flowers that you can dip in the batter we're about to make and fry up for a delightful treat. We went out and harvested some fresh daylilies for this, and the colored ones work just as well as the wilder varieties. We also harvested the day-old daylilies, and the reason for that is these can be dried and used later on. Now you notice these stains in the bottom of the container. That is due to the pollen. Do not wear your good clothes when you do this, because the pollen is a wonderful dye. And it will stain your clothes forever and ever. Now the dried daylilies are used a lot in Asiatic cooking. So that's one reason for drying them. So here's our daylilies. And what we're going to do with the day-old daylilies is basically put them on a cookie sheet here that has been lined with a paper bag. We're in our friend Ayalucida's tiny little camping trailer. And this is a tiny kitchen, and it's very creative to cook in here. She's posted for us on Savor the Southwest before. We're going to process these day-old daylily buds for drying, and basically all you do is you cut off that little green base, because that's not going to be any good. And if you're really fussy, you could cut them right down to the base of the petals, and then that's the gourmet way to do it. But just as long as you cut off this green bit, this at the very tip. And we're just setting them out here, and then we're going to dry them in the shade. Like we've said about drying any number of things. Now, if we had gone out to harvest with our scissors, we could have cut them off the plant and saved processing indoors. But, you know, that's so it goes. We wanted to make sure the camera could see this processing step. Okay, there we have it. The day-old daylilies are all processed. This is some compost. Actually, vermiculture is practiced in this home. So the worms are going to eat these and probably be very delighted. And now we're going to go on to processing the daylilies for today. Oh, and by the way, see all this nice dye on my hand? Yeah, that's from the stamens, the pollen. It's very brightly colored, and yes, you do not want that on your clothing. So now, before we start processing these flowers, we need to make the mixture that we're going to dip them in so that it has time to basically develop. And the recipe calls for a cup of flour, a cup of beer, a tablespoon of lime or lemon zest, a teaspoon of salt, and a half to a full teaspoon of cayenne. And it's going to be so yummy. But so when you're living or when you're visiting a friend and she doesn't have measuring cups, but she does have canning jars, well, look, here's a cup right here marked on the side of the canning jar. So there's our cup of flour. Now a cup of beer. The beers we had available are a light cream ale and a darker Guinness draught. It's beer. So Guinness is a stout. It's a very dark beer. We're going to use the cream ale for this recipe. And we only need a cup. So, oh gee whiz. We're going to have some beer with our dinner. So let's, somebody might say this is beer abuse. You're not supposed to pour it like that. I don't know. Let's give it a time to settle. Let's go ahead and measure the other things. Now the salt helps develop the flavor of this mixture. Ooh, that is some strong cayenne. It's from the local co-op, and you weigh the little jar and you put the product number on there, and this is really strong, so we are only going to use a half of a teaspoon. You don't want to overwhelm, the flowers themselves have a very subtle flavor, and you don't want to overwhelm it by using too much. Okay, now a full teaspoon of salt, maybe not quite that much, especially because the salt we're using is a sea salt, and so it's going to be also very strongly flavored with the taste of other elements from the sea. Okay, the lemon zest. No zester out here in the woods. So what we're going to do is very carefully take some of the rind off this lemon and chop it up fine as we can. So we're just going to very carefully, can we see this? See, you don't want to cut into the white. You just want to get the upper portion of the lemon. And this is one of these where we're going to pause the video and come back when we have enough. Okay, we got, a lot of the zest off this lemon. What we did was very carefully, because we can still cut this and use this to make lemonade or lemon juice for whatever. So if you take it off carefully, this is still a good lemon. Now, you've seen me use an ulu before. My friend Aya had one too. She's been to Alaska. She got this there. She loves to use it too for chopping herbs and things like that, because you just kind of rock it back and forth. I guess it's also really good for skinning animals, but don't tell that to Aya. She's a vegan. I said, don't tell Aya she's a vegan. This is why we're making this particular recipe for our daylily flowers, is because normally I would just dip them in egg batter and fry them up, but we don't want to do that because eggs, that's not on a vegan's eat list. So we're making a different kind of way to dip our squash blossoms, daylily blossoms, whatever. So I think we got more than a tablespoon here. But you know what? Let's see. Yeah, that's more than a tablespoon. So we're going to dry the rest for later. You want to kind of stir this around so the spices and the salt and everything are all mixed in, and our tablespoon of lemon zest. See, that's about what we want left. Okay, this is ready for us to pour the beer in. Now, normally I would do this in like a big pie plate, because we're going to dip the blossoms and leave them set for a little bit, but we don't have that option here today. Ooh, see that nice foaminess? Instead of trying to put in baking soda or anything like this, the beer is what makes it foamy and almost like a cake batter. And that's a point that I want to make, is that all this leftover, if there is leftover, if you make too much batter, just fry it up and eat it like a pancake. But there's gluten in the flour, of course, so this is going to develop. I wonder if you could make it with a sourdough batter. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up. There's a few lumps in here. This is one of the reasons for making this ahead and leaving it set for a while to develop. And you can whisk it if you have a whisk, or you can just kind of work it around with your fork. And now that this is mixed, this is one thing I like to do. Remember the cayenne in there? It smelled pretty powerful in the jar, but I'm gonna, ooh, it's powerful in there too. Okay, we're good. Don't need to add any more. This is gonna set aside to develop, and we're gonna process flowers. Remember that we had more than a tablespoon of lemon zest out of our lemon? That's something to put in your mind to remember. Next time, a good sized lemon, about this size, yields almost 2 tablespoons of zest. And now you know, next time you go to process one, only do half of it. It's the sharpest tool in the kitchen is your mind, and it's all about remembering things like that, and remembering how much in your hand is a teaspoon of salt. It just makes cooking quicker. So, time to process the flowers. Take off these pollen-bearing stamens, and I'll get up close so you see this. These are the pollen bearers, and that's it's okay to eat. Some people, it upsets their stomach a little bit, but we're going to save them and do some dyeing with it. And then the other thing we pull out of here, so we're going to pull all the pollen, and we're putting it right in this little dish here for later for dyeing. And basically, many members of the lily family have pollen that is used for dyeing, for cooking too. The saffron, the crocus that saffron comes from, is in the same plant family. So, but it's good to know before you just say, "Oh, it's related to saffron, I'm going to cook with it." I'm not sure personally, so I would look it up and try to find out if it was safe to eat. I do know it's safe to dye with. So where can you look it up? Let's show you this book real quick that I had sitting on the counter because Aya has it. It's an old copy of, it might even be a first edition, Stalking the Wild Asparagus. And in here he talks about cooking daylilies. And he reminded me that they are dried and used in Oriental cooking. So some of these old books are very, very handy. Yes, you can look it up online unless you're living off grid in the middle of nowhere. And now, can you see that I pulled all that inner guts out? And you're going to do that with squash blossoms as well. Just kind of pull them out. A little bit left behind is okay. Just, they're stringy. They've got a lot of veins in them so they can carry nutrients to that part of the flower. You just don't want to be chewing on it. And the worms will chew on this. So compost. Now, we're going to cut the nectars down in here, way down in there. But we're just going to cut off all the green. At this point, if we had it, we would stuff this with some ricotta cheese, close it up, and then dip it in our batter. We don't have any ricotta cheese. Dang, but it's in the recipe down below in the website, or on the YouTube video. You could put regular, like a chunk of cheddar cheese in here. That'd be pretty good. The ricotta helps hold it close. So cream cheese mixed with some chives, maybe. That sounds good. But I'm just going to show you what it looks like if we take this. Oh, we want to get the oil hot. We're not going to take this yet. Okay, come back when the oil is hot. Let's talk about oil. Okay, so my personal favorite is butter. And there's butter in this house because I'm visiting. But remember, vegans don't use butter. Vegans use, or bacon fat. Now, you could use bacon grease, and that would be, it might be overwhelming because this is a very subtle flavor that we're making here with flowers. You could use coconut oil for vegans. depends on the coconut oil. If it's a very bland one, that's fine. But if it's very coconutty, again, you don't want to overwhelm your flavor. That's why we used a light beer instead of a dark stout. So probably olive oil or avocado oil would be best to cook this in. And we're going to get the pan hot and come back and fry these up. So, failing ricotta cheese, I got asked, whoa, what about a chunk of nice sharp Vermont cheddar? We'll see. We'll see if we can't add that. So, I love experimenting with my food. I'm going to cut it so it might melt a little bit better. And basically all we're going to do, skillet's nice and hot here. You know how else to check? Drop of water. Woo, that is maybe too hot. Take that off. Turn the heat down a little bit. Medium-high heat, not high heat, okay? So all we're going to do is let's stuff our blossom with the cheese. This is the messy part. We're going to dip it in here, and you can see that it's a very thick batter. Now, this is why you only get one hand in there. And you hold it close, let a little drip off, and pop it down to fry. Okay, next. Normally we stuff these all with ricotta, and the ricotta would hold them closed, but we're experimenting. So this recipe will make up at least 12 blossoms. Okay. And I don't know if you can see in the background. I'm going to hold you up. Ooh. It is looking kind of like a pancake. See how those bubbles are rising? I'm going to have to flip these with my... You don't want them to get burned. Ooh. Lovely. Sorry, we wander around trying to see where the camera's looking. See those? I wanted to mention today, the flour that I'm using today is not a whole wheat flour, it's a rye flour. You can do this with rye or wheat or whole wheat. Pull them out. They're done. Just like a pancake. They get done very quickly. Now, I did say you could fry these up like pancakes, but you have to remember there's some cayenne in there. These are dinner pancakes. Don't serve them for breakfast with maple syrup or honey. You might just not taste very good all blended together like that. So, last of them. Oh, one giant pancake. No, two smaller ones. Them to you on them. Plate with the paper towel, but isn't that lovely? Now this was the red one, so it looks a little darker, but stuffed blossoms for dinner. Thanks for watching. Savor the Southwest.